Do you know what your state pension will be when you retire? No? Well, if you don't worry, as the system is being torn up and replaced with a new system, which is meant to be simpler. Anyone who retires after 2017 can forget all the complexities of basic state pension and second state pension. There will be just one single payment for each state pensioner. The current basic state pension is £107.45 per week. But most people will receive either a second state pension or a means-tested pension credit, which would bring their income to at least £142.70. But from 2017, pensioners will receive a single state pension of £144 a week, as long as they've paid the full national insurance. The government says it will cost the public purse the same amount, but it will be simpler to administer and fairer to those with small pensions. Well, earlier I spoke to the Pensions Minister, Steve Webb. I began by asking him why he thought it would be simpler.
At the moment, we probably have one of the most complicated pension systems in the world. We have a basic pension that most people get, a state second pension that some get and some opt out, and then many people don't live enough from that, so they have a pension credit on top. It's all baffling, and if you're at work today and you want to plan for your retirement, you haven't got a clue what the government will pay you. Under the new system, you have a single, simple, decent state pension, just a basic minimum enough to live on, and then when you're deciding what you want to save for old age, you know where you stand, and if you save, you will be better off.
Who is going to benefit the most from these changes?
So we're spending the same overall. Some will get more than they would have done, some will get less than they would have done.
And who are they?
The beneficiaries are particularly mothers who may be in their late 50s, who spent time at home with their children, which damaged their state pension. We're going to fix that. Self-employed and many low earners will get more than they would have done, and some high earners will get less than they would have done.
But millions of workers face paying more tax through increased national insurance contributions if they're part of final salary occupational pension schemes. That's true, isn't it?
It is true, and those are mainly people who work in the public sector who pay less national insurance than other workers now and get less state pension than other workers now. What we're saying in future is they will pay the same national insurance as everybody else and get the same state pension as everyone else. So although their national insurance will go up a bit, their state pension potential will go up quite substantially. So it's a good deal for public sector workers like those.
But in these current economic times, when unions at the moment are battling with the government about pension schemes and pension contributions, you're asking public sector workers to pay more out of their salary now, even though they may benefit later. So they will have to spend more out of their salary to pay for your changes.
So we're talking about 2017 at the earliest, so some years hence. And what will happen to those people in perhaps nurses and teachers is their national insurance will rise by the 1.4%, but their pension potential, instead of building up the 107 that they're currently building up, they'll have the chance to build up the 144. So if that was an investment, it would be a fantastic investment.
What about the public sector workers that we were just talking about, facing these higher taxes? Are the unions behind the scheme?
I've already started conversations with the unions and we'll go on having that dialogue. The crucial point for the public sector is none of this changes the pension they will get from their public service scheme. So if you're a teacher or a nurse, nothing we're announcing today changes the pension you get from that scheme.
But you are asking them to pay more?
You are paying more national insurance for a bigger state pension.
How much money does the Treasury get from these changes?
So what happens is reduced national insurance for people who've opted out of a bit of the state scheme in the form of national insurance rebates runs into many billions of pounds. That's not money we are spending, so that is a windfall, if you like, to the Treasury, who will have to decide how to spend it. But we are not spending it on bigger pensions. That's one bit of the public sector paying another bit of the public sector.
Well, how would you like to see that money that comes back in a windfall spent? I mean, you could argue, if you're asking teachers, for example, to pay more in terms of contributions, why not suggest that some of that money coming back goes back into education?
Well, just to be clear, the teachers who pay more national insurance will get a bigger national insurance pension at the end, so the teachers are in a good position.
But how would you like the money spent?
Well, it will be in 2017 at the earliest, and clearly priorities then may be very different to priorities now. So it's not my place or my role to speculate on how that money might be spent, but it will be money available to the Chancellor of the day.
Right, we've heard from the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who says in the short term he agrees with you that actually there will be benefits for many people, but in the long term, in 30, 40 years, people will be receiving a smaller pension relative to what they might have got under having the basic state pension and the second state pension, they'll actually lose out.
So the IFS are talking about, the middle of the century, that sort of time scale, and we will be spending a much bigger share of national income on pensions even after we've brought these reforms in, but the rate of growth will be slower. So we've got an ageing population. People are always telling us this. We'll have to spend more on health, more on care, more on pensions. And what this helps us to do is have a measure of fiscal control decades down the line. But for the first 20 years, something like that, we're spending pretty much the same as we are now.
Well, that was Steve Webb. With us now is Ros Altman, the Director General of Saga. Ros Altman, do you welcome these proposals?
I very much welcome these proposals. They're not perfect, but actually they are a huge step forward and long overdue. We have the most ridiculous pension system that virtually nobody understands, and even the DWP itself often says it's so complicated they can't work out what your pension entitlement's going to be from the state. You can't carry on like that, and the current system penalises anybody who saves in a private pension, potentially, because it relies so heavily on means testing.
There is a fear that public sector workers will have to contribute more. Well, they will have to contribute, not a fear, it's a fact. They will have to contribute a bit more in terms of contributions. Isn't that going to be quite difficult, as I put to Steve Webb, for those people in the current economic climate?
Well, first of all, at the moment, anyone in a final salary type pension scheme, including public sector workers, gets a discount on their national insurance because they are not contributing for the full state pension. In future, the potential is that they'll no longer get the discount. How that will be handled, we have to wait for the detail. But there is the possibility that they might have to pay up to another 1.4% NI, but it will be in exchange for a much higher state pension.
For which you'll have to work longer for.
Well, the age of when you get the state pension was already rising.
Yes.
Whether we had this new system or not, they would end up having to work longer. So the increase in the number of years for which you work to state pension age was already set. That's not really changing directly as a result of these reforms. And most public sector workers will already have 30 to 35 years anyway. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a full working career.
Now, we've already had, actually, some of our viewers writing in worried about contributions that they've made into the second state pension, or SERPs, as it is known. None of those contributions that have been paid up until now will be lost, will they? Or up until 2017 will be lost?
No, what the government is saying is it's not that everyone's going to have 144 and that some people will be brought down to it and some people will be moved up to it. Anyone who's already entitled to more than the 144 and has paid extra will have that protected. So there will be a transition period where instead of getting one payment, people will still get extra above the 144, but it will be the case that anyone who hasn't got as much as that minimum level will be increased to that, which is mostly women. Most men already have more than the £144 a week anyway. Most women actually now have less. So it will bring forward the time at which men and women's state pension will be equalised.
Do you think this is a good idea? Is this actually a practical proposal and solution to what is a complicated system?
Well, the devil is always in the detail.
And we haven't seen
I haven't
the
been able
detail.
to look at all that detail. But I mean, it sounds, anything to simplify things has to be good. And if it is complicated, it needs to be simplified. I think sometimes there's a bit of cant about talking about these things if you're in government. I mean, there is a real problem that we're all living longer,
That's good
and that
news.
we need pensions for longer. And I'm about to get to pension age. You chaps are much too young for that. I mean,
Far too young.
It's very immediate for me. And therefore, and also we're in a period of austerity, and what they're going to be able to do is get money for the Treasury now in the short term, and then looking to the future. And one needs to look at the detail, and I think it is important not to renege ever on deal where people have already spent money and paid for something. That is something that I think is just absolutely taboo, and occasionally we have seen things like that change, and that really mustn't happen, because pensions are so important for people when they look to the future. It's a long-term planning. I'm afraid some people actually don't think to the future and make no provision, and they are going to be in a very difficult position.
Well, and the government argues that this will give people some certainty in terms of planning for how much money they want to have in retirement.
That is absolutely the point at the heart of all of this, which is that ultimately everyone, especially younger generations, for whom this will be more of a reality because they won't have the legacy, everyone will know what the deal is. When you reach state pension age, you will get £144 a week, or whatever tomorrow's equivalent will be, and that's it. If you actually want to live on more than that,
yes, you have
to do
plan.
something about it. At the moment, because of the extent of means testing in the current state pension system, many low or moderate earners who do save, which isn't easy for them, end up finding that they've wasted their money because they've simply replaced means tested benefits that their colleagues will get anyway and be on the same income, but their colleagues didn't bother saving. That's not fair, and that puts a lot of people off saving. We've had a collapse in private pension saving since we extended means testing so much, and I don't think that's a coincidence.
Ros Altman, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have you back on soon to talk about the details when they come out.